May I request you all to please take your seats? Conflicts and the quest for peace is not just limited to the political sphere, something that we discussed just now. Sustainable development, they say, is the peace policy of the future. And one man who has worked towards it is Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, an Indian yogi, mystic and author, and a Padma Vibhushan. Ranked among the 50 most influential people in India, Sadhguru is a visionary and a best-selling author. As I said, he was conferred the Padma Vibhushan by the Government of India in 2017, the highest annual civilian award in India, accorded for exceptional and distinguished service. It is our pleasure to have him with us today. I'm also happy to introduce you I would like to introduce you to Mr. Riz Khan, a veteran journalist and an illustrious with an international career spanning decades. May I welcome on stage Sadhguruji of the Isha Foundation and Mr. Riz Khan to talk about a possibility beyond present realities.
Oh, you might have. Okay, good. Well, let's leave this here. Well, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be here with you. And Palki, thank you very much for all the hard work. You actually did the introduction, which saves me having to say, there's such a list of credentials Sadhguruji has, and Palki has mentioned some of them. I'm very honored to be up here because I always try to throw out these little nuggets of wisdom, like saying, when I did things like Aikido, I would say things like, voice has already lost the argument based on these ancient wisdoms I would hear. Although I later discovered in marriage the man is always the one who loses the argument, whoever raises the voice first. But I did happen to be in Davos a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting at a table with a very prominent Indian businessman. It might actually have been Shankaran Pillai, I don't know. But he was actually called up to speak, and I heard him say to his wife, just as he was about to go on stage, he said, "My dear, could you have ever imagined in your wildest dreams that I would be speaking at the World Economic Forum?" And she whispered back, "My dear, you were never in my wildest dreams." So be careful what you say. Sadhguru, it's such an honor to be with you and to have so much chance to speak with you on stage. I'm going to open it up to questions fairly quickly because I know our esteemed participants are very keen to speak with you as well. But I do have to ask you, at this time we have of raised tensions, at a time when people want to find unity, but they also want to deal with the stress and tensions of present horrors. How do you ask people to move forward, how to do things in a way which allows them to find a common ground?
Good morning to everyone. Namaskaram. This is that kind of time that whatever you say will get judged in an extreme way. Well, there are good reasons for that for a whole lot of people. There are lots of dead bodies and lots of bereaved families. So there is emotion, strong emotions. But there are problems and there are solutions. When we invest in problems, problems multiply. It would be wise to invest in solutions. But in a democratic nation, when you take everybody's opinions and emotions and considerations, it's very difficult to move in any one direction because it's always trying to move in 10 different directions. But I feel this wouldn't be a very difficult problem to solve if there is an abstinence from daily violence that's unleashed in the form of terror. The old philosophy of 1,000 cuts is still being executed. When that's going on, it becomes very difficult to even talk about a solution. I think that's where we are right now. Aspiring for peace is definitely in everybody's heart. Aspiring for peace looks like a noble endeavor. But practical situations have always been handled in different ways. It's not just today's issue. Forever, human conflicts have been happening. Because when somebody is aspiring for peace, somebody else takes advantage with one incisive, violent act. I think between the two nations, enough of those things have happened. Question of trusting each other just doesn't arise right now. So if you ask me, because when it comes to common people, their aspirations of economic well-being is one of the important things. As a region, we have 33% of the world's malnourished. So, the largest number of stunted children in the region, in the world, is in that region. So individual people and families, if you take them, their aspiration will be very economic. I feel putting economics as a front foot is the best way to do it. I think India made a serious effort in giving this most favored nation status to our western neighbor, but that did not yield any result as such. Today, it's sort of been withdrawn by putting 200%, whatever you call it, a cess or a tax or whatever it is. So, talking peace is a very fashionable thing. Everybody talks about it. But when it is being declared by the proponents of this violence very clearly, our goals are not geographic. That is, Kashmir is not the goal. Once we liberate Kashmir, we will liberate the rest of India. When these things have been clearly stated, I don't see how you can talk with the same people endlessly peace because it's ridiculous. So I feel the region has to make efforts to bring an economic prosperity. I think if the rest of the countries show economic prosperity, I'm sure people in Pakistan don't aspire for anything else, they also aspire for their well-being. It is just that certain forces in every nation behave like they represent every human being in that country, but it is not true. You should see the bonhomie that Indians and Pakistanis have outside the country. When they're outside that region, they do very well with each other. Once they are there, not possible.
Sadhguru, for those who are maybe less familiar with some of the amazing things you've done, because you do work very hard, within India you had amazing success at helping people. What do you feel has been the biggest outcome on the projects you've created? What has been the most successful project in raising the quality of the lives of people in India that you've experienced?
So we launched a comprehensive campaign called Action for Rural Rejuvenation. What I saw was, there are many projects, there are many schemes, government-endorsed schemes. There is budgets for it. But what is missing is people willing to take it in their hands and do it. They've been waiting for the government to do it. Government has that much mechanism to deliver, beyond that they don't have the mechanism to deliver. It's simply not possible for a government to come and change people's lives. It can provide certain infrastructure, certain budget, certain other possibilities, but cannot actually change people's lives. People have to stand up and do it. So when we started this, there were many issues. One important thing is different kinds of divisions in the society of religion, caste, creed. There are various things we did to overcome this. One significant thing we did was, when we did these programs together, one problem I saw was there was a kind of resistance to sit down together and eat, because your caste and my caste doesn't agree, your religion and my religion does not agree. We are not able to eat together. Then I tried to push it, then I saw a lot of resistance. Then I changed the whole thing into something else. I said, you don't have to eat together, we'll just play together. We just brought games into villages. No scripture ever has said that you should not play together, fortunately. No religious book has told them you should not play together. Somewhere it has been said you cannot eat with those people. But nobody said you cannot play with those people, because nobody thought of playing first of all. So we brought games in a very effective way in rural southern India especially, where today it's become a major movement. Just now in September we finished one, in November we finished one, where over 40,000 players across 28 districts in Tamil Nadu participating for over 3 months, league matches. All sorts of people, men, women of every age. There's one particular team where there is a 66-year-old woman, her daughter-in-law and her granddaughter, all of them in the same team. A winning team.
It's a winning team.
They won last year, but this year they came on third place or so.
Probably because the grandmother couldn't take part.
No, she was still there. Maybe she's 2 years older now.
Well, sir, I want to…
So why I'm saying this is,
sorry.
this moment of playing games, we have education, we have health and other things on the ground, which are all important. But for all of that to run smoothly, I saw this sport became a fantastic tool to deliver those things, because suddenly there was an exuberance and joy in the villages and the sense of competition and pride about the village, that they wanted their village to win. Suddenly they forgot what caste they are, what creed they are. Nobody ever thought of asking, what is Virat Kohli's caste? It never occurred to them. But if the local politician is standing for election, they will find out what caste he is. But nobody worries about the sports person, so we kind of leveled that and managed to deliver. So similarly in every area, even these differences of nationality, we could overcome by some means which is a little offbeat, which is not the usual things we're talking about. Two religious people can never agree upon anything because they have been indoctrinated that way. Two armed forces cannot agree because their business is like that. Politicians cannot agree because that is the way things are with them. But this is the thing about business, why I said economics should be the front foot is, the nature of a businessman is such, if the deal is good, he will deal with the devil also. That's what is good about him.
Well, let me do this. I know our participants are very keen to speak with you, and you've been very kind to say you're happy to take questions from the people who've joined us today. So I don't know if we have microphones on the ground, but we can certainly take a couple of questions. I promise I will get to the questions in the order which I see the hands go up, and the lady there has her hand up first. Let's see if we can get your microphone, just behind you, ma'am. I'll come to them in the order I see them. There's someone at the back there I see as well. I'll get to you. I'll get to you.
Namaskar, Guruji. You hit the point very hard when you said that there's been so much senseless violence of late, and I think on behalf of all the participants here, we again once more pay our condolences to the grieving family and to a grieving nation. But my question is more fundamental. You understand soul better than all of us. What is it in the human soul that drives us to this violence, senseless I must say, and then derive pleasure out of it? Because unless, like you said, there's pleasure, we don't like to do anything. You talked about the joys and happiness that you brought with your games in the village, but what is lacking in our souls that we get pleasure out of violence?
Well, I would like you to take away the senseless, because those are words of poetry. But violence makes sense to somebody. That's why they cause violence, because it makes sense to fulfill certain goals of their own. So let's not be in that kind of a utopian mindset that violence is senseless. No, there is sense to it, a very cruel sense to it, but there is sense to it because a whole lot of things historically have been achieved with violence. So people know if you are capable of unleashing a certain level of violence, you will achieve your goals. So it is not senseless. Only for somebody who's looking at only the blood and gore and not seeing the design behind it, it is not violence by default, it's not like crime. This is violence with design, driving towards a certain point, and if we do not stop it or if we do not counter it appropriately, their designs will be fulfilled. So it is not senseless, it is sense, but unfortunately, it's senseless for the lives. About your soul, we need to understand this. Once we identify with something, whatever is our identity, of caste, creed, religion, nationality, once we identify ourselves with something, the very nature of human identity is such that we will start working for that identity. That identity becomes more significant than life at some point. We're willing to live for it, we're willing to die for it. It may be a family, it may be a nation, or it may be a religion or a race, but once you identify with something, that's how human mind works. To create a world beyond these identities, well, that's the ideal, that's what we all strive for. But is that reality close by? No. I'm not somebody who lives in a dream state. I live in this world, I know the realities of this world. Are we anywhere close to that? No, we are not. But today that possibility of taking ourselves in the direction of beyond identity kind of world, beyond limited identity kind of world is much more a possibility than ever before because technology has made the borders of the nation, the borders that you set forth in so many different ways of societies is kind of broken and it's become very porous. Young people are communicating with each other, it doesn't matter, there is war or peace, they're communicating with each other. So there is a much bigger possibility today of taking the world towards a humanity which identifies as humanity, not with race, religion, nation, whatever else. But right now the reality is, nation is the largest segment of humanity we can address for solving any problems. We are still not in that kind of state where we can address the entire globe. We have not come to that state where we will embrace each other and live in absolute joy or peace. That is not anywhere close. So nation is the largest piece of humanity we can address, so that identity is probably better than other identities within the nation. So in that context, national boundaries should have been settled, especially when we got our independence. We should have settled our national boundaries one way or the other. Little give and take somewhere and we should have done it whichever way. But we have not done that, we are still living with a LOC or line of control, which is all the time out of control. So fundamentals of making a nation, there are many aspects to a nation. One basic piece of it is sovereignty of the nation. That means we know where our nation begins or where it ends. When that is in constant confusion, then these fights become inevitable, unfortunately. I think it is time, one way or the other, we must settle as to what is our nation, what is not our nation. If we don't settle this, we will bleed generations to come.
I'm going to try to get to the hands in the order I saw them. The gentleman there is next, and then I know at the back we have two as well. We'll get to you.
Sadhguruji, I have a question. My name is Guru Raj Rai, and I want to know from you your view on giving and forgiving. Is it essential for a pleasant human experience?
Well, first of all, why do you accuse somebody of something and then try to forgive them? I don't forgive anybody because I don't accuse anybody of anything. Everybody is doing what they know best. What they know best may not be the highest thing in the world, but they're doing what they know best. Can we evolve people to a higher level of thought, emotion and action? This is all it is about. But every human being is functioning at the level that he or she is. So where is the need to accuse them and then forgive them? I'm not for forgiving because I have no bitterness about anybody, so why should I forgive anybody? There's no such thing. About giving, what is there to give? We come with nothing. Did you come with an investment into this world? Then how are you going to give? There is nothing here which is really yours. Presently something may be under our care, to use it to the best use, to the maximum number of people should be the goal. There is nothing to give because it never belonged to you. You pretending to give something when it doesn't even belong to you. I think these values have been, spread around the world, giving, I don't know what to give. What is there to give? Only if you steal from the world you can give, otherwise what is there to give? The only thing you can do is, you're doing your best for this life and every life around you. That's all a human being can do, because you come with nothing and go with nothing. There's no container service at the end of your life. In spite of that, people have turned their homes into warehouses.
I'm trying to get to the hands in the order they went up. If I could just pass it to the gentleman there, please, sorry. I'll get to you, sir, afterwards. I just want to get to the order, and he's in the middle there. Thank you. And tell us who you are, just behind you there. Thank you.
Sadhguru Pranam, I saw a message this morning which appeared to be your tweet. In the age of fake news, we don't know whether it was your tweet or not. It said that you suggest 70. If that's really your belief, can you please explain us further how will this help in diffusing the situation? Thank you.
See, there is a confusion in the country as to what is India and what is not India. You must settle this. If you don't settle this, these fights will go on endlessly. How many lives have been lost on both sides? For how long you want to do this? We must decide. You must have the courage to decide. Otherwise, if you do not integrate the nation, this problem will go on. This confusion, in the new generation that is there also, there is confusion whether I belong to this nation or do not belong to this nation, because different people are campaigning in different ways. So I'm only talking about anything and everything which is coming in the way of integrating the nation must be removed. And in my opinion, Article 370 is one of those things which is leaving populations confused, not knowing where they belong.
Actually, the microphone was supposed to go right to the back, but sir, if you've got it, just please ask if you have something, and then we'll get to you at the back, sir. Just speak into it, they'll get it.
Sadhguru, my family's been in the Gulf. Now this year we complete 100 years in the Gulf. And of course, in the Gulf, we've lived all our lives with the Muslims. 1947, partition came, and I was born in Karachi. But I always said I was born in Karachi, India. Because at that time, when I was born in 1938, there was no Pakistan. Now the question is here. When 47 we had to leave because we were Hindus, we had to leave from Sindh. My father had a question because living with Muslims, question was, okay, fine, you don't want us to live in Pakistan as because we are Hindus. All right, then we'll go and live with our Muslims in Arabia. Can you explain to me how a religion which is there, how can you fragment it and say that yes, this is our religion between the two?
Well, this will need a historical post-mortem, which I don't think is appropriate here. But we must make this happen in the world, that individual religion, whatever you want to believe in, must be in a personal capacity. You don't have to practice it on the street, nor do you have to practice it as a nation. Individual people can believe whatever they want. The religions of the world should come to that level of relaxation. They are right now in an aggressive marketing mode. Everybody trying to conquer more people all the time. If you relax that you don't want to capture, it's called soul capturing, she mentioned the word soul. If you stop this thing about soul capturing and leave people to do what they want, you can teach your preachings, whatever, if whoever likes it will follow it. If this relaxation comes in the religious teachings that it is not about the numbers, and first of all, I feel in a democratic country, if the politicians of the day 100% realize that people will not vote on the basis of what they believe in as a religion, the voting and the choice of leadership will not happen on the basis of religion. If this one thing happens, I feel more relaxation will come and further partitions need not happen. Partition is… India-Pakistan partition is one of the cruelest things that have happened in this part of the world, where over 600,000 people died and millions of people are still suffering. In both parts of the… in both the countries, still a whole lot of people in the second, third generation still not settled because of what happened then. So, we cannot fix what happened in the past, but if we don't learn from the past, that means we are unworthy of being human.
The gentleman at the very back, if you could put your hands up in the local dress, we'll get the microphone to you.
मैं जितेंद्र वैद्य, yes. Gurudev, there is so much anger, emotion going on in our country at the moment. There was a Mahabharata and there was a fight between Kaurav and Pandavas. And after so much of tolerance, Krishna intervened. Do you think that now we are seeing a Krishna? The Krishna will appear and do the justice with this battle? Thank you, sir.
This is a very Indian problem. We always think somebody will come from somewhere and save us. It's very important to understand. Then also he did not come. He was there, just like you, but took responsibility to see if he can sort out a few problems of the day. Similarly today, if we stand up to sort out the problems, we may succeed, if not all out, at least to the extent that we can in our lifetimes. But expecting some Messiah to come from somewhere and transform our lives, this must go. This happens because India is one nation which remembers a few thousands of years of history in the form… because our history was not written in a simple factual way, but it was written in a dialectical way as a living story. Because it was written in a living story, you still keep living 6,000 years ago. It's time you come to 21st century. Solutions will not come from anywhere else. If we stand up to find solutions, we may take a few steps. The way the situation is right now, solution is not nearby, but we may take a significant few steps in our life so that solution will happen sometime in near future. If we don't take these steps and we wait for somebody to descend from somewhere and solve our problems, anyway, I want you to know that even in Mahabharata, when Krishna came, as much as he tried, he could not solve the problem. It ended in a disaster. So, I hope we won't wait for somebody to come and make a disaster out of this, that we need to stand up on both sides and find some solutions.
I'm going to ask Mr. Mubarak, just wait a moment, I'll get to this gentleman and I'll come to you, sir. Yeah.
My question to you, Sadhguru, is that you said that Article 370 should go. Shouldn't Article 370, 371, rather than being seen as an act of keeping two entities apart, be seen from the perspective of constitutional safeguards to religious and ethnic minorities when the state came into play after 1947?
Well, Karthikeya, that question is not relevant because there are more minorities in the rest of India than in one state called Kashmir right now. So how do you say that? On what basis? So are you going to pass the Article 370 for every state wherever there is a certain amount of population? It doesn't work like that.
Hello? Yes, Mr. Sadhguru. I want to ask you about psychedelics. Do you think psychedelics can help diffuse violence if given to leaders?
You want to dope them now, nothing else worked. Okay, well, it could be a solution.
They'll be so preoccupied with the dragons that they won't worry about each other.
See, we need to understand this. We're always thinking one leader is the problem, either here or there. We need to understand we are democratic nations. In Tamil language, in southern India, in Tamil language, the word for democracy is Jananayakam. That means people are the leaders. That's what it means, people are the leaders. We cannot simply say that if you give drugs to one leader, our problems will be over. It's far more deep-rooted than that. Well, the majority of the population may not be involved, even if it's 2% of the country's population, but it is a very dynamic 2% population. 98% population may be there, but they're little sleepy. Maybe they're already drugged. They are in a way. They're drugged with their lethargy, they're drugged with stories of their own, they're drugged with these kind of beliefs that somebody will come and save them one day. No, I think we need to get them off the drugs. They're on different kinds of drugs which is putting them to sleep. It is important to awaken people, not to put people to sleep. Putting people to sleep is a temporary answer, and when they come back, you don't know what all they will do. When the drug wears off, we don't know what they will do. So, that's a colorful idea though.
So the lady in the middle, if you put your hand up, we'll get the microphone to you. I'll come to you in just a second, ma'am. Please, sir, go ahead.
Guruji, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much among such fine people this morning. In the panel earlier, one of the gentlemen mentioned that the voice of the leadership of our nation is not necessarily the voice of the people. And in a way, you actually led me to my question when you mentioned Jananayakam, which is of the people, for the people, and by the people. So, on one hand, we're talking about empowering people with making decisions that will benefit the nations. But these are the same people that are intolerant when it comes to portraying a fictitious character on the big screen, and they threaten to behead her. Why are we so intolerant, is my question, and directly related to the Year of Tolerance in UAE.
I didn't get the point of beheading somebody.
Related to the Padmavat controversy when the actress was… so, we're talking about empowering people, and then we have the same people coming up with trivial issues, which is when we have bigger issues to deal with.
See, democracy leaves people with a certain amount of privileges without any particular mechanism to insist on a responsible behavior from everybody. So a whole lot of people misuse these privileges in different ways. Don't take that as the standard. That's not how most people are. Anyway, about whether the leaders represent people or not, the argument generally is, well, only 60% of the people voted. Out of that, the present leader got only 31%, so how can he be the nation's leader? Well, what the hell are the remaining 40% of the people doing? When they have not voted, they have no rights to comment either. So if it matters to you, you must stand up and vote, it's a privilege, you must exercise that. And how should you exercise it? It's very important now that the elections are coming and maybe many of you do vote in India. See, the important thing is if democracy has to work, the feudalistic mindset has to go, in the sense, if even one family votes as one unit, then it's not democracy. This is the idea of secret ballot, that everybody should think for themselves and vote. If you vote as a family, if you vote as a caste, if you vote as a religion, even if you vote as a party, I'm saying something which is going to be… I'm going to be unpopular with all the political parties in the country. I'm saying this political party membership should be taken away. There should be no such thing, because I see, particularly in United States, if you ask somebody, he says, I'm a Republican. Why? My father was a Republican, my grandfather was a Republican. So your vote is already decided. This is a feudalistic way of existence. Where is the democracy in this? We are getting there also rapidly. In our country, it was not like that in the beginning, but now we are getting there very rapidly. I feel this political membership should not be there. There should be a limit. If they need that many people, maybe 500 people, 1,000 people to run their party, that many people can be the members. Public should not be members because they're pre-committed, which is not a good thing. Every time when the election comes, you must evaluate what's happened in the last 5 years, is it worthwhile, whether we should give them another chance or not, is something that each individual should decide. If you decide as a mass, either because of your party membership or because of your religious affiliation or because you belong to a caste or whatever, then there is no democracy as such, it is just feudalism in the name of democracy. And most countries are becoming like this, particularly United States has taken to this, and India is going that way. I think if we want a course correction, we are talking about voting beyond religion and caste, but what about the party? Party has become the new religion. It's important that there should be no memberships. People should decide just before the election who they want to vote for. Otherwise, we will subvert the democratic process.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to you with a microphone, but I don't think they got it to you yet. But okay, after this lady, let's get the microphone to the middle there. Thank you. Go ahead.
Namaste, Guruji. I'm Lata Ramakrishna. My question is, since women have a very soft approach to everything and they love to hold discussions instead of offering knee-jerk reactions, will it be better to empower and encourage women in leadership roles, and will it bring down violence all over the world?
Oh With all due respect to the ladies, whenever there were women leaders, either in the world or within our country, in the States, unfortunately, it's not been proven so. So, I wish if that was the option, it would be very easy to shift to that, but I don't think that will solve the problems because there's no evidence to say that.
I have to share an interesting story that apparently Winnie Mandela, while Nelson Mandela was in prison, of course she was a very strong figure in public, when Nelson Mandela came out, they went to visit Margaret Thatcher in 10 Downing Street, of course a very strong woman leader, who all the men in her cabinet, by the way, were terrified of her. Winnie Mandela was obsessed to meet Margaret Thatcher, and in this tiny cocktail party in 10 Downing Street, she spotted her across the room. Winnie Mandela barged her way across and confronted Margaret Thatcher, who was in the middle of a conversation, and said, "I hear they call you the Iron Lady." And Margaret Thatcher was a bit put out by being interrupted like this, and she said, "Well, yes, one has been known to be called the Iron Lady." And Winnie Mandela said, "Well, I am the Iron Lady of South Africa." And Margaret Thatcher said, "For whom do you iron?" Ma'am, thank you for your patience.
Namaskaram, Sadhguru. Thank you, Riz. Sadhguru, different topic. This wonderful youth and truth that you're doing gives me hope for an India of the future. Could you tell us something about your experience with this? Are more and more of the young people coming to Isha Foundation getting more involved?
Well, the reason why I went out to do this when already there are too many things on hand is, this is a constant refrain wherever I go, a whole lot of people who come in touch with whatever we are doing. They are 50, 60 years of age, and the first thing they say is, "Sadhguru, where were you when I was 20? Now you come when I'm 60, what am I supposed to do?" So I've heard this quite a lot all over the world. Then I decided we'll step out and meet all those people who are below 25 years of age. And it's been a wonderful journey going to these various universities, both in India and United States. Today, I think we have invites from over 260 universities across the world, and I don't know how many we can fulfill. But the important thing is we have built a question bank of over 100,000 questions. We are hoping in the next year or two we will answer these questions to whatever extent possible. And we want to build a digital book where youth have a reference book for whatever questions they have some kind of solution. The idea is to make it available to everybody, irrespective of where they are. It is also being translated into some 18 or 19 languages around the world, so that it finds access to people irrespective of the nations and the societies in which they exist. The important thing about this is, see, when you're a youth, there is a certain amount of energy. The problem is, when you're young, you think this energy will last for a lifetime. They have to pay, usually they don't look at old people. If they pay enough attention to the old people, not me if they pay enough attention to the old people, they will understand that this level of exuberance and energy will not be with me forever. When that exuberance is there, it gets wasted because the necessary balance is not there. By the time they acquire certain balance, the exuberance is gone. So, in one's life, the sooner they attain to some kind of balance within themselves, there is more possibility for human genius to unfold. When you are an issue by yourself, when your own thought and emotion is a big issue within yourself, you are not going to grapple with any big issues in the world. So one fundamental aim of this is to ensure that you are not the issue in the world. There are issues in the world, what we can handle, we will handle, what we cannot handle, we do not handle, but you should not be the issue. So for this, the most fundamental thing is, there is an inner balance within the human being. The sooner it happens in one's life, the better it is for that individual human being and better for the entire humanity.
I'll just say the BBC trained me as a journalist, TV journalist, to live by the clock, so we have 2 minutes. Mr. Manish Tiwari, I'm going to try and get you the microphone just for a last quick question. You'd asked. Sorry, we just got… he was next with his hand. I wasn't sure if we'd have the chance, so if you could just give him a chance to… We have literally 2 minutes, please. Just. Mr. Manish, you're going to… Oh yeah, sure, and I can then speak, unless we can get it to you. We'll try and get it to you, sorry.
You can speak.
I'm sorry, we were so tight for time, and I was just watching the hands as they went up, so… Here you go, behind you, sir.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure hearing you, Sadhguruji. You know, I heard you talk about identity, sovereignty, technology. But technology has completely eroded Westphalian sovereignty. Today, you have the Facebook lands, the Twitter lands, the Instagram lands, which do not respect national boundaries at all. So when we talk about sovereignty, are we obsessing about a 19th century concept which has become completely passé?
Definitely, but we need to understand the region which we are right now referring to. 33% of the world's malnourished children are in this region, in India, for that matter. So, nearly a third of our population is not even in 19th century, they are in 18th or 17th century. So when they are in that place, we talking about 21st century as if everybody has gotten there is not fair. Right now, you need to strengthen the sovereignty of the nation because you cannot address the people without strengthening that. When populations come to a certain level of well-being, definitely we have to loosen this sovereignty. We must understand this. This making of a nation is at different levels of evolution for a society. Unfortunately, within the first 25–30 years, if we had become a developed nation, we would be talking a different language. I would be definitely speaking a different language. But my engagement, 70% of my work is in rural India, and what 21st century are we talking about? 21st century we talk only when we come to Bangalore, Mumbai, somewhere. When we are in the villages, we are talking 18th century talk. That's the condition where they are. So, somewhere, if we are not able to take 100% of the nation's population at once, but little upgradation of at least basic nourishment must happen before we talk about bigger ideas of loosening the borders. This is why I said, if economic borders are loosened, political borders are tightened but economic borders are loosened for some time, all that India needs is a larger economy. Without scaling up the economy, without increasing the size of the economy, there are really no solutions. Because a small pie, you're trying to break it for 1.3 billion people, whichever way you break it, it's not going to work. We need to increase the size of the pie. Once the size of the economy is large enough, and for it to become large enough, these nations need to function as one, as economic unit at least. At least there is some kind of loose union of doing our economics together, then we can talk about loosening of the sovereignty of the nation itself. Otherwise, you know, the most affluent nations are building walls today because when the disparity is so big, then people who have something want to protect what they have. People who don't have something want to come there. Right now, the biggest problem in the world, which we are trying to address through certain processes is, it is estimated in the next a decade or decade and a half, over 1.5 to 2 billion people will migrate. Why would anybody want to leave their homelands, their families and everything and move to some other place? Every day, a few hundred people could be dying between Africa and Europe. Media doesn't report it in a very controlled way. But maybe they will report the dead. You can report the dead, 100 died, 200 died, whatever died. But can anybody report the suffering that the living are going through? Those men and women dragging their children and small possessions and going away from their homeland, that suffering, who is going to report it? Who is going to ever understand that suffering? So this migration has to stop means we are looking right now, trying to move with the United Nations and a few other agencies as to how we can spread the world's investment into impoverished societies so that business could be done in a different way. So if we don't do this within the country, and India is a world by itself, with 1.3 billion people, it's a world by itself. If we don't move people upward in economic terms, talking about loosening the boundaries at this time won't work. First of all, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, reasonably, if they're economically in some kind of similarity, then opening up the borders will work. Otherwise, when the disparity is too heavy, if you open it up, there'll be chaos and inevitable conflict.
And just a thought, by the way, technology is changing every day. There's word that YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook might merge, except we'd end up with you-twit-face. So that might not be so good. Sadhguruji, thank you so much for taking so many great questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Balki, I hand over back to you. Thank you.
Please, sir.